You won't believe what Gabourey Sidibe looks like today. Before you judge this headline, hear what Gabourey Sidibe had to survive. Cruel jokes, sideways stares, and she'll never last. Predictions weren't harmless talk, they were weapons aimed at a young black woman who dared to take up space. But the shock in her story isn't a tabloid makeover. It's how she fought for health, love, and freedom in a world that tried to define her by her body. In the next minutes, you'll see why she's still here and thriving. If this story hits you, tap like, subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence, and tell me in the comments what transformation really means. Shocking intro and setup. The video opens with a jolt, harsh, demeaning voices tossing insults about Gabourey Sidibe's body as if it were public entertainment. Those lines aren't there to sensationalize her looks. They're there to show what she has endured. Before any transformation is mentioned, we're made to sit with fat-shaming, the kind of casual cruelty that hides in jokes, headlines, and honest opinions. It's an uncomfortable hook by design. The real shock isn't a photo or a dress size. It's how quickly people feel entitled to shrink a woman's life down to her weight. From that opening, Sidibe comes into focus not as a punchline, but as a person. We remember the young actress who stunned audiences in Precious, and the clip reminds us that fame didn't silence the mocking voices, it magnified them. Every red carpet step became an invitation for strangers to judge, to label her acceptable or too much, and to pretend their commentary was harmless fun. By putting those voices up front, the video makes a promise it will not celebrate cruelty. It will expose it, then move past it to the human being they tried to bury. So when the title promises you won't believe what Gabourey Sidibe looks like, today the opening teaches you how to listen. This isn't about gawking at a body, it's about witnessing a life. The fat-shaming voices fade into what they always were, noise, while Gabourey's presence becomes the signal. The surprise won't be that she is unrecognizable. It will be that she is unmistakably herself, a woman who outlived other people's definitions, made choices for her health on her own terms, and arrived in a place of calm humor and hard-won freedom at last. For an audience that's seen trends come and go, that steadiness is the headline, and it's worth staying for right now. Breakthrough with Precious. Gabourey Sidibe's unbelievable journey doesn't start with a makeover or a headline. It starts with a casting call and a leap of faith. In 2008, she was living a regular New York life, working a day job and carrying no formal acting credentials. She wasn't groomed by drama schools or backed by industry connections. Then she saw an open audition notice for a film called Push, adapted from Sapphire's novel about a Harlem teenager named Clarice Precious Jones. The notice wasn't looking for polish, it was looking for someone real. Sidibe walked in as a complete unknown. And what she brought to that room wasn't technique, it was truth. Against hundreds of hopefuls, she won the lead role, and the direction of her life snapped into a new shape overnight. When Precious, based on the novel, Push by Sapphire, premiered at the 2009 Sundance Film Festival, the reaction was immediate and intense. Critics didn't just like Sidibe's performance, they were stunned by it. She portrayed Precious not as a symbol or a lesson, but as a living human being, wounded, resilient, funny, furious, and hungry for love. Sundance audiences could feel that this wasn't the kind of debut that comes along every year. The film quickly became one of the festival's breakout sensations, and as it moved into wider release, the buzz grew louder. In a matter of months, the former receptionist who had never been on a film set was being photographed for magazine covers, interviewed on national television, and treated as the new face of a story that demanded to be heard. Then came the Oscar season, and with it a moment that could have been written as a fairy tale. Except Hollywood fairy tales rarely make room for women who look like Sidibe. Precious earned multiple Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, and Sidibe received a Best Actress nomination at age 26. Suddenly, she was competing in the same category as Meryl Streep, Helen Mirren, and Sandra Bullock, three of the most established stars in American cinema. For most people, just being in that lineup would be the achievement of a lifetime. For Sidibe, it was history. She became one of only a handful of black women ever nominated for Best Actress, and the world watched as a brand new talent stood shoulder to shoulder with legends. On paper, it was a Cinderella story. An ordinary young woman is discovered, astonishes the kingdom, and arrives at the biggest ball of them all. But Precious wasn't built for comfort, and neither was Sidibe's rise. Hollywood loves an underdog until the underdog breaks the rules of what a star is supposed to look like. Sidibe was plus-size, dark-skinned, and openly herself in an industry that still struggles to imagine women like her as leading ladies. The nomination was celebrated, yes, but it also exposed an uncomfortable truth. The system could praise her talent while still being unsure about her presence. Even in a moment of triumph, she was being measured against standards that had never been designed to include her. That's why this chapter matters so much to the title, You Won't Believe What Gabourey Sidibe Looks Like Today. Her present can't be understood without this turning point. Precious didn't simply launch her career, it revealed her power. It took Sapphire's uncompromising story and placed Sidibe at its heart, letting her show the world what courage looks like when it comes in a body people don't expect to celebrate. In 2009, she didn't just step into Hollywood, she challenged its imagination. And that challenge is the beginning of everything that came after the battles. The choices, the growth, and the woman you see today, still unmistakably herself, still standing in the space she claimed when the world first tried to doubt her. Hollywood backlash and fat-shaming. The moment Gabourey Sidibe stepped into the spotlight after Precious, Hollywood did what it often does to women who don't fit its narrow template. It tried to shrink her back down. Her Oscar nomination should have been the start of a golden runway, new roles, new respect, a new place in the industry. Instead, it became a stress test for how much cruelty a breakout star could absorb. Overnight, Sidibe wasn't just being reviewed for her acting. She was being evaluated like a public object, her body treated as a debate topic, her presence on red carpets framed as something to explain. For viewers who have watched the entertainment world evolve over decades, this part of her story feels painfully familiar. Talent opens a door, but bias stands in the doorway with a tape measure. The backlash wasn't subtle, and it wasn't private. Some media voices didn't just question whether Sidibe would get another job, they said it out loud on air, with confidence, as if her size disqualified her from a future. The message was cruelly simple. She had been allowed to appear once, and now the industry would correct the mistake. One of the most cited examples came from shock jock culture, where host Howard Stern mocked her appearance and predicted she would fade away because of her weight. The comments weren't delivered as personal preference, they were delivered as a verdict. That's what made them so poisonous. It wasn't "I don't like her look." It was "someone who looks like her isn't meant to last." And when those words float through the culture, they don't just target one actress, they warn every person watching who shares her body type or skin tone. Sidibe, to her credit, didn't crumble into silence. She showed up anyway. She kept doing interviews, kept walking carpets, kept holding her head high even when the air around her was thick with judgment. What the critics missed, what they still miss, is that she wasn't a novelty act. She was a performer with presence, timing, and emotional power. The irony is, sharp people who claimed she wouldn't work again were already wrong while they were saying it. She booked roles, broadened her range, and built a career that wasn't dependent on anyone's comfort with her shape. The louder the gatekeepers yelled, the clearer her resilience became. If you've lived long enough to see sure things collapse and long shots thrive, you recognize this kind of backbone instantly. But it would be dishonest to pretend the harm was only noise she could ignore. Public ridicule hits differently when it's aimed at the body you live in. Sidibe wasn't dealing with one rude remark. She was dealing with a system that rewards cruelty as entertainment. Every insulting joke invited thousands of smaller echoes online. Every headline about her appearance taught the public that they were allowed to weigh in. And because she was a black woman in a plus-size body, the criticism came layered with sexism, racism, and sizeism tangled together. Hollywood has a long habit of calling women inspiring only when they conform and controversial when they don't. Sidibe was being asked to prove she deserved space in the same moment she was being punished for taking it. This is why the title, You Won't Believe What Gabourey Sidibe Looks Like Today, matters more than a clickbait tease. The real unbelievable part isn't that she changed. It's that she survived a machine designed to flatten her. She outlasted predictions that were never about her talent in the first place. She kept going in an industry that tried to make her existence feel temporary. And what that cruelty ultimately reveals is something bigger than show business. When people like Howard Stern made those comments, they were telling on the culture, not on her. Sidibe's story, especially in this chapter, is a reminder that the ugliest reactions often arrive when someone's success threatens old rules. She didn't end because of her body. She endured because of her spirit, and that endurance is the part worth believing in. Private struggles with mental health. Before the world ever pinned a headline to Gabourey Sidibe's body, she had already learned what it meant to live inside a spotlight that never turns off. Long before fame, her size drew commentary like a magnet. Family remarks, strangers' stares, the subtle way rooms seem to shrink when you walk in. In Brooklyn, growing up, plus size and black wasn't just a physical reality. It was a social sentence. People talked about her body as if it were community property, something to correct, judge, or joke about. That early atmosphere didn't simply hurt her feelings, it shaped the way she learned to survive. She became funny quick and armored often, making the joke first so no one else could sharpen it into a weapon. In her memoir, Sidibe later pulled back the curtain on what that survival really cost. During college, she struggled with bulimia, purging after meals in a desperate attempt to control a body the world refused to stop policing. Eating wasn't just eating. It became tangled with shame, fear, and the exhausting hope that if her body changed, the cruelty might finally quiet down. But the cruelty lived deeper than the mirror. She wrote about battling depression that grew heavy enough to distort her sense of reality, days when getting through the next hour felt like climbing a wall with no handholds. For anyone who's lived long enough to know that smiles don't always match. Suffering her honesty lands hard. She wasn't fighting vanity. She was fighting for air. At her lowest point, she admitted she contemplated suicide, weighing methods the way exhausted people sometimes do when pain feels endless. And what made that darkness even sharper was how alone she felt inside it. When she finally told her mother Alice that she was depressed, the response wasn't comfort or concern, it was dismissal. Her mother laughed, treating the confession like drama instead of danger. That moment matters because it shows the quiet heartbreak behind the public story. The person who should have been a shelter became another voice telling her to toughen up, to get over it, to stop making trouble. If you come from a generation that learned to keep going, no matter what, you recognize both the love and the harm that can live inside that kind of reaction. Then fame arrived, and instead of lifting the pressure, it multiplied it. After Precious, every appearance turned into a referendum on her weight. Red carpets became runways of judgment. A single photo could trigger 1,000 strangers deciding whether she looked better, worse, healthier, or disappointing. She couldn't shop, travel, or sit in an interview chair without her body becoming the headline. Imagine trying to heal from an eating disorder while the world loudly grades your plate. Imagine trying to steady your mental health while the internet refreshes itself on your face, your arms, your silhouette. Her body was no longer just a personal experience. It was a public argument people felt entitled to win. Yet what keeps you watching and what pulls the title into focus is not the cruelty, but her clarity. Sidibe began naming the war for what it was, a lifelong collision between her inner worth and the outer noise. She didn't pretend self-love was a switch she could flip. She described it as a practice, sometimes strong, sometimes fragile, always honest. The unbelievable part of what Gabourey Sidibe looks like today is rooted here in this interior battle. She looks like someone who has walked through shame, grief, and misunderstanding and still chose to stay. She looks like a woman who learned that peace isn't handed to you by applause. It's built brick by brick inside yourself, even when the world keeps trying to tear the house down. Everyday discrimination stories. Fame is supposed to change the way the world treats you. That's the promise we grow up believing. Make it big and doors open. People smile, respect follows. But for Gabourey Sidibe, the "you won't believe it" truth is that success didn't magically buy her safety from everyday prejudice. Even after Precious and the Oscar whirlwind, she still walked through the world in a body people felt licensed to judge. The cameras may have adored her talent, but ordinary spaces, stores, sidewalks, elevators often carried the same old message: your presence here is suspicious. And when the title hints at a transformation, this is part of what it's really pointing to, not just how she looks, but how she learned to live inside a gaze that rarely feels kind. Sidibe has described how shopping something many of us see as routine could turn into a quiet humiliation. She talked about entering luxury shops and feeling the temperature of the room drop, security hovering, employees watching too closely. The subtle, rehearsed politeness that says, "We don't think you belong here, but we'll let you feel it before we say it." For someone whose face had been on magazine covers, that experience cut in a specific way. It wasn't about money, it was about assumptions. The world had already decided what kind of customer she must be, based on size and skin, as if wealth, taste, or simple curiosity could only come in certain bodies. One incident in a Chanel store in Chicago crystallized that reality. Sidibe entered the boutique like any customer might, just browsing, just existing, and was met with the kind of dismissive treatment that feels both casual and calculated. A saleswoman reportedly tried to redirect her to another store, implying she was in the wrong place. It wasn't an argument, not a scene, just that slick, polite shove people use when they want to move you out without admitting why. Then something changed. Other shoppers recognized Sidibe. Suddenly the tone shifted. The same employee who had treated her like a problem began treating her like a prize. That flip cold to warm suspicion to sweetness told the real story out loud. Fame could temporarily override bias, but it couldn't erase it. That moment lands hard because it's so recognizable. Most people watching this video have lived long enough to know what it feels like to be misread in a room because of age, accent, clothes, body race, or all of the above. Sidibe's story exposes how prejudice works in the everyday, not always with shouting, but with side-eyes distance, and the presumption that certain spaces are reserved for certain kinds of people. The Chanel incident wasn't a one-off fluke. It was a clear example of a pattern she'd felt in many places. What makes it sting is the way it proves that respect wasn't offered to her humanity, only to her celebrity. And yet here's where the title keeps its grip. You won't believe what Gabourey Sidibe looks like today isn't just a tease about weight or style. It's about the way she carries herself after years of being told directly and indirectly that she doesn't fit. These everyday slights could have taught her to hide, to apologize, to shrink. Instead, they sharpened her understanding of what matters. She didn't beg those spaces to accept her. She learned to value herself without their permission. If you're expecting a jaw-dropping makeover reveal, the deeper surprise is this. She looks like someone who knows her worth in every room, even the ones that once tried to push her out. Diabetes diagnosis and bariatric surgery. By 2016, Gabourey Sidibe had already survived a decade of being treated like a public debate. She had walked red carpets with a smile while strangers measured her worth against her waistline, and she had kept working in an industry that rarely imagines women of her size as long-term leading ladies. But that year delivered a kind of truth that no headline could twist. She was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. It wasn't a rumor or a celebrity scare story. It was a medical line in the sand. Sidibe spoke openly about the fear that rushed in with the diagnosis, not because she suddenly hated her body, but because she didn't want to lose pieces of her future to preventable complications. Diabetes meant constant vigilance, the threat of nerve damage, circulation problems, amputations, real outcomes, not abstract warnings. In that moment, the question wasn't, how do I look? It was, how do I live? The diagnosis hit even harder because it wasn't hers alone. Around the same time, her brother Ahmed was also diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. That detail matters. It hinted at genetics, family patterns, shared habits, and a reality bigger than willpower or celebrity narratives. It also turned the problem into something intimate and undeniable. Two siblings facing the same condition, two mirrors showing that their bodies were waving red flags. Sidibe has described how that parallel experience sharpened her urgency. This wasn't about pleasing Hollywood or winning a culture war. It was about wanting a future where she could work, travel, laugh, and breathe without a chronic illness quietly eroding her from the inside. So she made a decision that many people talk about, but few understand in full. She chose laparoscopic bariatric surgery. Specifically, she underwent a procedure that dramatically reduced her stomach size, limiting how much she could eat, and changing her relationship with food at the most basic biological level. Bariatric surgery is not cosmetic. It's a medical intervention used when obesity and metabolic disease create life-threatening risk. It demands permanent lifestyle shifts, nutrition planning, careful portioning, vitamin management exercise, and ongoing medical follow-up. Sidibe didn't describe it as a shortcut. She described it as a tool she needed to survive. And in the months after the results were real steady weight loss, improved blood sugar control, less physical strain, and more freedom to move through the world without pain. But here's where the story collides with the internet's expectations. Sidibe had become an icon of body positivity, especially for plus-size women and black women who rarely saw themselves celebrated without apology. She was admired not just for her talent, but for her refusal to perform shame. So when she chose surgery, some people felt betrayed. A loud corner of the body positivity community accused her of selling out, of choosing thinness over acceptance, of proving fatphobes right. At the same time, many of the same voices who used to mock her suddenly acted as if her smaller body was a victory for them, too, cheering her weight loss while dismissing the years she had spent advocating for dignity at every size. She was hit from both sides, judged for staying fat, then judged for changing. Sidibe's response is the heart of why the title matters. You won't believe what Gabourey Sidibe looks like. Today isn't a circus trick about a shrinking body. The real surprise is how clearly she drew the boundary between her life and everyone else's opinions. She refused to accept the false choice that says you must either love your body or care for your health, but not both. She insisted that surgery was not self-hatred, it was self-preservation. She did not owe the movement permanent fatness as proof of loyalty. She did not owe Hollywood a thinner version of herself to earn respect. She owed herself a chance to live without fear. And today, when you see her confident, active, working, and openly joyful, you're not looking at a woman who gave in. You're looking at a woman who chose life, then kept choosing it one honest decision at a time, finding love and getting married. For years, the public has chased Gabourey Sidibe's story through the narrow doorway of appearance, what she wore, how much she weighed, whether she fit someone else's idea of after. But the chapter that really explains why the title still grabs attention is simpler and sweeter. Love found her when she wasn't performing for anyone. In 2019, Sidibe joined Raya, the selective dating app, known for giving celebrities and industry professionals a bit more privacy. She wasn't looking for a headline, she was looking for something real. That's where she met Brandon Frankel, a marketing and talent management professional who had lived enough life to be cautious about love, but also open to the right person. For Sidibe, who had spent years being publicly judged, the idea of being chosen for who she was felt almost unbelievable. Yet that's exactly what happened. Their first date told the story before any Instagram post could. It lasted more than 7 hours, long enough to move past small talk and into the kind of conversation where you forget to check your phone. In a world of quick swipes and quicker exits, 7 hours is a loud signal. This was ease, curiosity, and genuine connection. Sidibe later shared that she entered the relationship carrying old wounds, internalized doubts about whether someone like Brandon would truly want someone like her. Decades of fat shaming and rejection don't vanish just because you're famous. But Brandon met her with steady affection and pride, not surprise or charity. The more they talked, the more the relationship felt less like a fairy tale and more like a safe home being built in real time. Only 3 months after meeting, Brandon proposed. Not in a flashy staged spectacle, but at home, an intimate surprise filled with rose petals, balloons, and their 2 cats looking on like tiny furry witnesses. The simplicity mattered. It said, "I choose you in private, not just in public." Sidibe has laughed about how the proposal was revealed a little earlier than planned because of a small timing mishap which only makes it more human. There was no perfect movie moment to preserve just two people excited to commit. For audiences who've watched relationships rise and fall under celebrity pressure, this kind of grounded romance feels refreshing. It wasn't about chasing a brand. It was about choosing a partner who saw her whole life, not a tabloid version of it. Then came the part that surprised everyone most. They got married quietly on March 12, 2021, and didn't turn it into a public event. No rolling cameras, no magazine-exclusive countdown, no dramatic rollout. They stayed private for over a year, letting the marriage belong to them before it belonged to the world. When Sidibe finally revealed the truth, she did it in her signature style, casual, funny, and disarmingly honest on Live with Kelly and Ryan. Sitting with Kelly Ripa and Ryan Seacrest, she explained that she had already been married over a year ago, almost as if she were sharing a sweet secret rather than announcing news to millions. The host's delighted shock added to the moment's charm. In one sentence, she flipped the usual celebrity script. The relationship wasn't a performance. It was a life. That's why this section fits the title so perfectly. If you came expecting a transformation built on numbers or clothing sizes, the real you won't believe it twist is emotional, not physical. Gabourey Sidibe looks like someone who finally got a love story that doesn't require her to change who she is. She looks like a woman who once wondered if she was worth choosing, now living inside a partnership where she never has to ask. And the beauty of it for anyone watching from 45 to 65 who knows love can arrive on its own schedule is that her happiest chapter didn't come from trying to fit Hollywood's mold. It came from stepping away from the noise long enough to hear the right person say clearly, without conditions, "I'm here and I'm not going anywhere." Motherhood, twins, and life today. When the headline promises you won't believe what Gabourey Sidibe looks like. Today, the real surprise isn't a dramatic makeover. It's the life she's living now, a life shaped by motherhood joy and a sense of freedom she fought hard to earn. In late February 2024, Gabourey and her husband Brandon Frankel announced they were expecting twins, and they did it with the humor and warmth that have always made her magnetic. Their announcement joked that their cats were finally ready for more responsibility, so each cat would be assigned a baby. It wasn't a glamorous reveal. It was a playful, intimate window into the new chapter unfolding behind the scenes. Fans and friends filled her comments with love, including actress Octavia Spencer, who called her radiant not because of how she looked, but because of how fully she seemed to be stepping into happiness. Just weeks later, in early April 2024, Sidibe welcomed her twins, a son named Cooper and a daughter named Maya. Each name carried intention. Cooper was a longtime favorite of Brandon's, while Maya was chosen during a meaningful trip the couple took to the Mayan Riviera. Their first family photos weren't polished magazine spreads. They were sweet, genuine glimpses of a new mother holding her babies with the kind of tired, glowing pride that needs no filter. For someone who had spent years being reduced to commentary about her body, the simplicity of these moments was powerful. They weren't about public approval. They were about private joy finally shared on her own terms. Motherhood, especially with twins, transformed her daily life. Sidibe spoke honestly about the whirlwind, the sleepless nights, the endless feedings, the constant dance of balancing two babies who needed her at the same time. Yet beneath the exhaustion was a kind of fulfillment. She hadn't expected, a deeper connection to herself and to a family she helped build with intention and love. She also acknowledged the challenge many mothers face holding on to personal identity while caring for little ones who depend on you for everything. Returning to acting helped her reconnect with the parts of herself that existed long before motherhood, reminding her that a woman can expand, not disappear when she becomes a parent. Brandon Frankel, her partner in every sense, often shares affectionate snapshots of their life together. He celebrates her as a mother, a wife, and a woman whose strength continues to ground their family. The twins, now well into their toddler phase, bring laughter and chaos into every room they enter. Cooper's curious energy and Maya's expressive, bubbly personality have turned the household into a place where every day is unpredictable but full of meaning. Sidibe often describes these days as overwhelming, funny, and sacred, a reminder that love can stretch a life in ways fame never could. And that brings us back to the title. What does Gabourey Sidibe look like today? She looks like a woman standing firmly in her own joy, not defined by Hollywood's expectations, not sculpted by public judgment, but shaped by love, motherhood, health, and self-respect. She looks free, and that more than anything is the transformation no one saw coming. Gabourey Sidibe's journey from Sundance breakout to a diabetes diagnosis, bariatric surgery, and a joyful life as a mom of twins forces us to rethink what transformation really means. It also reminds us that fame doesn't cancel stigma. It only spotlights it. She refused Hollywood's cruelty-challenged body policing from all sides and chose health without surrendering self-love. Today, she looks free, not because she matches anyone's ideal, but because she owns her story. Still, a thorny debate remains for Legends of Black Excellence viewers when a public body-positive icon changes her body. Is it empowerment or a concession to a biased world?